And we're going. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Post-election. Oh, here we go. Hope everyone's doing well. I am having my coffee. What's up, Karen? How are you? Good to see you. Happy November 7th. Day after a midterm, which we'll be talking about. Why not? It was, Hi, Daniel. I'm okay. How are you? You know, as far as midterms go, there have been better, there have been worse. You know, I thought there were some things for some good things. No, Jilly, it didn't. Hi, Derek. How are you? Hi, Mama Alaska. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. Lady, how are you? I'm glad to hear you're almost done with treatments, and I'm thrilled to see you. Some of you guys are already sharing some news. And thank you, Daniel. I love my Op Ivy shirt, too. Derek, do you grind your own coffee? I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately, no. I don't. Not typically. Every now and again, I'll get some good beans and I'll grind them up. But I'm very old-fashioned when it comes to... And maybe old-fashioned is not the word for it. But yeah, I just kind of use a coffee pot from the 90s, and then I just throw it in there, and I just need a full pot. You know what? I don't like Keurigs, and whenever I talk about that, I find out how not alone I am in that regard. And the show has not officially started yet, by the way, everybody. We're not at 30 quite yet, so we're just light chatting here. But I don't like Keurigs, and I have found that I'm not as alone as I realize in that regard. A lot of people aren't a big fan of them. If you are, that's fine. You know, do you. But they're annoying, and they're not convenient. Like, they're not really convenient at all. They're convenient in a workplace where, people want a bunch of different things. So if you want cider, you can have it. If you want a different type of coffee, you can have it. That's where they're convenient. And even in that case, they're really not environmentally friendly at all. I mean, I know you can do certain things like use the reusable pads or whatever the hell you call them, but I'm not a fan. Anyway, let's do this. We are over 30. Welcome to Get Your News On With Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. I am Ron Placone, your host. It is a day after the election, so we're going to do what we always do. I shouldn't say, this show has only been around through one primary. It's still a really new show. So we've only had one election happen in as long as this show's been around, and it was the primary in June. Some of you guys remember that show. I was painfully depressed because it was a brutal primary in California. I'm not somebody who likes to tie up a loss and put a bow on it. That's not something I'm a fan of doing. You guys know that about me. I'm a big fan of winning, which some of that happened last night, some of it didn't. There's some things to be excited about, and there's some things to kind of still be a little bit discouraged about. And I would have liked to have seen some other things in the win column versus the losses column, but let's break it down and talk about it, and then I'm going to talk to you guys, too. So, whenever you have good news and bad news, I like to do bad news first. I like to end on something positive. So, let's do the bad news first. Well, first of all, here in California, the two biggest things I was hoping for had nothing to do with any candidate. The two big things I was hoping for was public banking and rent control, Prop 10, which would enable more rent control on the ballot, the possibility for more rent control on the ballot. Both of those lost. The public bank lost, and rent control lost too. They poured a lot of money into fighting that rent control. And, big banks, I guess, poured a lot of fear money into scaring people off from these socialist banks. Ooh. And both of those lost. Kenneth Mejia lost. Rodolfo lost. Maria Estrada lost. Those were all endorsements I made, and none of them were quite able to pull it off. They all worked hard. They all fought hard. Maria Estrada, in particular, she went up against a multi-million-dollar campaign with about $4,000, and she got nearly half the vote. So she worked hard, but it wasn't quite enough to overcome the machine that Anthony Rendon had at his disposal. So those were some rough losses, And let's see, what else were some? And then going nationally, Beto O'Rourke, of course, was not able to pull it off against Ted Cruz. Andrew Gillum was not able to pull it off in Florida. And, what's interesting about those two candidates, they started really hard on Medicare for All, then they kind of backed off on policy and lightened up on it a little bit. Gillum started campaigning with Hillary Clinton, and then Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he lost. He started out with a lot of momentum. He started off by about 10 points. And then when he started doing all that stuff, it declined. I'm not going to say that racism also didn't play a role in that. I'm sure it did, but you can't help notice how when certain actions were taken, certain numbers started to plummet. And I don't think it's just because people want these policies. I think it's because people want strong convictions. I think people want solutions. They want explanations, and they want strength. And when you back off of policies and don't stand behind them and don't try to sell them, that's when you get a little bit. That's when you get less enthusiasm at the final breakdown. So, Beto was not able to pull it off. Andrew Gillum was not able to pull it off. So, and let's see, what else can we put? I mean, the big thing for me was, what happened at the local level here in California. We're not going to get a public bank in Los Angeles, which that's not just sad for Los Angeles, that's sad for the country. Because if you would have seen a public bank in Los Angeles, that really would have laid the groundwork to transform our politics. And other cities would take note. So those were some big losses. And trying to think of other losses. What else do you guys? Let's stay on the negative category first, and then we'll go on to the positives. What were some kind of? Jordan points out none of the candidates that you voted for won. All right, and I guess another thing, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Yeah, that was a huge one. Tim Canova. I couldn't believe those results. I just couldn't believe those results. With how hard he worked and how he really got it done on the ground. I don't know. And were those genuine results? I don't know. At this point, it's impossible to say. But I find it hard to believe. I find Tim Canova's results very, very hard to believe. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a known cheater. So I'm not saying anything one way or another as far as, but I will just leave it at, I find it very hard to believe those results. I find them very hard to believe. I mean, that Republican who was basically non-existent all of a sudden got 36%, Tim Canova. I mean, I find it hard to believe. And what else was pretty disappointing? Feinstein retained power. Of course, it's rough seeing her in office. But like I said yesterday, and I stood by it, I couldn't justify voting for her opponent either. I didn't vote for either one of them. I left that blank. And if I voted again today, I'd leave it blank again. I don't see the benefit of trading in a wolf in sheep's clothing that at least a lot of people know is a wolf for another wolf in sheep's clothing who is younger and not a lot of people know is a wolf. So I didn't vote for De Leon. He ran a pathetic campaign. And I'd leave it blank again. It's tough watching Feinstein in. And I know a lot of people that just voted against Feinstein, and I get it. And if you did that, I'm not here to shame you. I don't blame you. But, no matter what I do, when you give someone something to vote for, that's when you got a shot at winning. When you only give someone something to vote against, that's when you lose. Once again, happened in California. Kevin De Leon did not give people anything to vote for. He gave people something to vote against. They can vote against Feinstein. And Edwin's pointing out some voter suppression that was going on in Georgia. We're still watching that unfold in real time. That was another, pretty ugly moment from last night. All right, so let's move on to the positive. There is some positive. Let's move on to that. First of all, we'll stay in Florida for a minute, even though there was a lot of discouraging news. They did give convicts the right to vote, so that was huge as far as voter rights goes. That was a good thing. A lot of DSA-backed candidates won. A lot of them. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. I made a little list here. Summer Lee in my home state of Pennsylvania. Elizabeth Fielder, also in Pennsylvania. Rashida Tlaib in Michigan. Sarah G. Inmarato in Pennsylvania. Ilham Omar in Minnesota. Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts. Scott Walker, as Edwin points out, is gone. Goodbye, Scott Walker. And I tweeted this. I was like, well, the last person leaving Scott Walker's office, please turn out the lights. By the way, those lights were probably made possible by a union electrician. Goodbye, Scott Walker. Let's see. What else is there to be? A lot of propositions passed in a lot of... First of all, every Fight for 15 backed proposition for living wages passed. There weren't a lot of them, but they all passed. And they were in red states. They were in Missouri. They were in Arizona. They passed. What else happened? A lot of the establishment candidates, they lost, proving that ain't work. That doesn't work. Claire McCaskill lost. John Tester nearly lost, just hung on by the skin of his teeth. Jordan points out Michigan passed all three propositions. Legal pot, gerrymandering rules, and same-day voting. Michigan got it done. And they got Rashida Tlaib. So it was a good day for Michigan. It's a good day for Michigan. So those were some victories, some reasons for optimism. In Arizona, they were also going to vote for clean air and water, and there was a ton of shenanigans that happened. Patricia points out ex-felons can now vote in Florida. We mentioned that. What other good news am I missing? Let's focus on the good news now. And what happened with pot in Utah? Yep, voters relaxed marijuana laws in 3 more states, Michigan, Utah, and Missouri. Prop 2, medical marijuana legalization approved. In Utah, not necessarily a progressive hotbed. So, Prop 6 in California, Edwin, was a no. So, there's some good news and there's some bad news. And guys, I want to end on the most important piece of good news, obviously. The big piece of good news here is Lucy, my cat, made her television debut yesterday. I mean, guys, let's focus on what's really important. You take the small wins where you can. Lucy made her television debut yesterday. You can see that over on RT at Crosstalk. She crushed it. She stole the show. And it went straight to her head, though. I got to be honest with you guys. I woke up this morning. She had a rider for how she wants to be fed. She wants her food arranged a certain way. She said, no more brown M&Ms. And I said, you're a cat. I don't feed you M&Ms. And she said, well, I'm just saying. Anyway, no more brown M&Ms. So, yeah. And I think you guys are kind of summing it up. Here in California, we lost big time. Things in California, we really shit the bed. There were some progressive victories across the country. That's a good thing. There were some establishment losses proving that method has failed and it's over. And, it was really rough to see Nancy Pelosi speak, where a bunch of progressives won in spite of the Democratic establishment, not because of the Democratic establishment. And a lot of them won anyway. And then you listen to Nancy Pelosi speak, who promotes a bipartisan marketplace of ideas. Progressive policies are winning in red states. People want living wages. People want legal pot. People want an end to gerrymandering. People want those things, and they're winning. People want clean air and water. People want jobs. And Nancy Pelosi talks about a bipartisan marketplace of ideas. How blank suit and uninspiring can you get? But we all know it's by design. So, there's some reasons to stay optimistic. But there were a lot of losses too. Definitely. So let's go to some stuff you guys are sending in, and please feel free to send in some more stuff pertaining to the election or just pertaining to whatever else. And we got a couple things that you guys have been sending in. So let me go to this one. Here's something pertaining to, an issue we talk about a lot here on this show that Corey sent in. Thank you, Corey. Lawmaker who once paid... Ooh, I'm stumbling over the headlines today. Lawmaker who once paid fast lanes on internet wins U.S. Senate seat. U.S. Representative Marsha Blackburn, a Republican in Tennessee, one of Congress's most outspoken opponents of strict net neutrality rules, has won a U.S. Senate seat. Blackburn won 54.7% of the vote in yesterday's election, defeating Democrat Phil Bredesen, who received 43.9%. The vote tally was about 100. All right, we don't need that. So let's see. Blackburn's Open Internet Preservation Act. Because Republicans maintain their Senate majority, Blackburn could play a key role in writing net neutrality legislation. And, of course, she's against net neutrality. She has offered several net neutrality bills in the past few years, including the Open Internet Preservation Act, which would ban blocking and throttling, but allow our ISPs to create fast lanes and prohibit state governments from enacting their own net neutrality laws. The bill would also prohibit the FCC from imposing any type of common carrier regulations on broadband providers. So basically, it's anti-net neutrality. It is so you can't block and throttle, but you can have fast lanes and slow lanes. And the internet's not a common carrier, which means the throttling could happen in the future because people that can't pay the price will be throttled. So this is anti-net neutrality legislation. It's not an Open Internet Preservation Act. It does the complete opposite. She's in favor of paid prioritization. Now, this isn't likely to pass the House, they're saying. And what's interesting here is that it's happening in Tennessee. Tennessee is a place where they're really pushing for broadband, and it's working even amidst red state voters. Why? Because Chattanooga is in the state of Tennessee. And people see that Chattanooga has the best internet in the freaking country. Whether you're on the right or the left, you probably dig the internet. You probably understand the role the internet plays in our lives. You probably don't want to see that change. If you live in the state of Tennessee and you see that Chattanooga has the best internet in the freaking country at a reasonable price, and it's enjoyed by people on all sides of the political aisle, you're going to think, why don't we have that? And then you're going to find out why you don't have it, and you don't have it because of bullshit corporate interests. Josh Androsky said this in regards to public banking. There's nothing more American than cutting out the middleman. It's the same thing here. There's nothing more American than cutting out the middleman. So why have some corporate price gouging entity control your internet when you can control it in your community? And you can hold your city officials accountable. It's a hell of a lot better than Comcast, huh? So it's interesting this happened in Tennessee, such a staunch net neutrality opponent. And maybe if she gets anything moved forward, which hopefully she won't, but maybe if she starts proposing legislation, starts trying to harm net neutrality protections at the state level, maybe that'll really wake Tennessee up and they'll really start pushing for municipal broadband. So thank you for sharing that, Corey. And guys, start sending stuff. Please start sending stuff. We got some room for your stuff here. And let's see, let's go over to the Reddit. This is kind of funny. Somebody shares this. All right, I'll go over to this. This is from the Reddit, and it is pretty funny. I saw Ann Coulter tweet this. Kansas is dead to me, says Ann Coulter. Matt Oswald, I'm not really familiar with that person, but did it drop another house on your sister? That's funny. That's pretty funny. And does Ann know that the Westboro Baptist Church is still in Kansas? I mean, it seems like that'd be her kind of place. But I guess she's angry. Because of some election results. So, Ann Coulter. Man, it's, I think Ann Coulter is a, well, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I'm pretty sure Ann Coulter is just a total parody. Like, I don't think she actually believes anything she says. I don't at all. A comedian friend of mine, who I won't name specifically because I don't know if they want this story repeated, was on a panel with her once on, I believe it was Morning Joe, and throughout the panel, they were arguing and bickering back and forth, you know, because he's on the left. And she goes, "Oh my God, I can't even sit next to you. I can't even sit next to you. I can't. And then when the cameras are off, she was just talking about whatever. They were just going back and forth, having a nice, friendly conversation. And then when it was about time to go back on air, he goes, "Hey, are you going to move your seat?" And she was like, "What?" And he goes, "Remember you were saying how you can't sit beside me anymore?" And he goes, and she goes, "Oh, should I?" And he goes, "I mean, I don't know. You were pretty serious, like you were really hating me or whatever. And she goes, do you think it'd be funny? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, all right, I'll do it. We'll see how it goes. So now my point is granted, a lot of us, you know, when you do shows, you have heated debates about policy. And then typically afterwards, you shake hands as colleagues, you know. I've certainly been in that situation. I've disagreed with colleagues of mine on certain issues. We've gone toe-to-toe. And then afterwards, we're talking about our lives, you know, and and it's not because we were faking anything. We still disagreed on issues. But, you know, you can disagree with your colleagues and still be respectable colleagues. And these are people that are, you know, also on the left. There's just a few things strategically that we see differently right now. You know, I've gotten into those discussions, and they've gotten heated. But then after, we're talking about opportunities in LA, and we're talking shop about our lives, and we're congratulating each other for getting engaged, whatever. So I'm certainly not saying that one case I mentioned is reason that Ann Coulter is just a total actress. But, you know, it's just one case in point amidst, I think, many kind of clues that are out there that she is just a total actress. I don't think she actually means anything she says. Nonetheless, that was a funny tweet. All right, let's see what else is going on over on the Reddit. Oops, I went too far. All right, let me. Sorry, I'm having the Reddit's like not loading weird. It's not loading weird. What the hell does that mean? Ron, what's wrong with you? How did you not get better at scrolling? I don't know. I don't know. Things are loading weird today. I think my internet's fine. All right, let's see. Someone sent this. All right, sorry. The Reddit's being goofy. I don't know what the hell. Let's go back over to Twitter. I apologize, guys, but the Reddit is being really goofy. That's my official tech explanation. Reddit, goofy. And I know you're thinking, Ron, you're not even that good at using Reddit. Maybe you're the goofy one. No, stuff's not loading. It's legit. It's legit. All right. This is from Jordan. We're going to go over to Jordan. And guys, keep tweeting articles. We still got room. I know I typically don't get to everyone, but I think a lot of you guys were just talking post-election, but please do send some stuff. The Green Party, oh, here we go. Here is the time for this. The Green Party may cost Democrats a Senate seat in Arizona. Arizona voters who went with Green Party Senate candidate Angela Green over Democrat Kristen Sinema might have cost the latter candidate the election. On Wednesday morning, with the race still not called, Republican Martha McSally had the slight lead of 49.3% of the vote. Sinema had 48.4%. The difference comes down to 15,908 votes. Green has 38,000. So, okay. They never get tired of writing these articles, do they? They never get tired of them. And you know why I don't take them seriously? Because I host a show where I see a lot of you in the chat who you don't vote unless there's a green option. And people have the right to do that. People have there is this falsity that Green Party voters would have been Democratic voters otherwise. That's not true. Someone like me, I support progressives wherever they're at. I don't care what they hang next to their name. If it's a D and they're trying to dem-enter, I'll support them. If they're Greens, I'll support them. If they're running as an independent, I'll support them. In the case of Sam Ronan, even if they're trying to infiltrate the Republicans, I don't see how that could work out, but I would support Sam. I would have voted for Sam if I lived in his state. State and district. I didn't live in either. Not everyone does that, though. Some people, it's like, look, if you're not, I can't support this two-party duopoly. I only show up if there's a green. That's how a lot of green voters are. These votes were not guaranteed to the Democrat. So, but they just won't let go of that idea. They won't let go of that idea because it gives them an easy scapegoat. It gives us an easy scapegoat. So, all right, we got some articles here. And I don't know when we're going to overcome that ridiculous stigma. I know that I'm preaching to the choir here. But so much of the general, and even other people on the left, they think that there's this assumption that other parties don't have the right to participate in a democracy, and that people that support a certain party would just support the other one if they and that's not guaranteed. Most people, if Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot, that voted for Jill Stein would have stayed home otherwise. And I believe that's likely the same in Arizona. So this idea that people should be shunned and shamed for trying to participate in a democracy, what message is that sending? Bend the knee. Bend the knee. And when you're in a situation where you have if you live in the state of Ohio and you have two pro-fracking candidates, and you're scared about clean water, so you vote for the Green because it was the Democrats' job to go to the Greens and get those votes. I know you've heard me say all this stuff before, and I know in this, for instance, I'm preaching to the choir, but, it's a really annoying scapegoat that the media tries to shove down our throats, and it's a lie. And somebody wants us to know what Nancy Pelosi is up to. I went ahead and retweeted this article from Trico. Trico, thank you for sharing. Pelosi urges bipartisanship as Democrats win the House. How inspiring. How inspiring. A victorious Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday. By the way, part of the reason she's victorious is because of a bunch of progressive wins that won in spite of her, not because of her. Said Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives will use their newly won majority to pursue a bipartisan agenda for a country that she said has had enough of divisions. Enough of division. Democrats have been projected to win enough seats. Yeah. Okay, we know that. How inspiring. Man, go to the heartland and talk to people that are working 2 and 3 jobs to survive. They're worried about how their kids are going to pay for college. They're worried about jobs in their area. They're worried about the safety of the jobs they do have. They're worried about their drinking water. They're worried about the wages that they're not paid fairly. And you ask them, what are you most worried about, though? I know you're grossly underpaid. You need to work 2 and 3 jobs to survive. You don't have enough money for a $1,000 emergency. You can't see the doctor if you're sick because of this bogus healthcare policy. You're worried you're not going to be able to send your kids to college because of crippling student loan debt they would have to undertake. But what's most important, and you know what they're going to say. They're going to say, man, I am newly inspired because Nancy Pelosi said we're going to have a bipartisan marketplace of ideas. Is there a less sexy sentiment? A bipartisan marketplace of ideas. How lame can you get? It's like someone prepped Nancy Pelosi and they were like, all right, a bunch of progressives won across the country. People want ideas. People want policy. What are we going to do, Nancy? You got the pulpit. You're the leader. What do we got? A bipartisan marketplace of ideas. Everybody's libido just dropped a little bit after hearing that sentiment. Everybody. That is the most unsexy phrase maybe that's ever been uttered. Wait, no. there's a less sexy one. We're capitalists. That's one less sexy right there. Another Nancy Pelosiism. Oh, people don't want to change. Also, very not sexy. Nancy Pelosiism. Please step down, Nancy. Please. Ugh. And of course, it's because we need a donor-approved message. I mean, how uninspiring can you get? And she already said her first priority, Trump's taxes. And you get pundits on MSNBC and wannabe MSNBC pundits that make it out like this is something Americans actually care about. And about 1 to 6% of them do. According to every academic poll that's out there, about 1 to 6% of them actually care. I dislike Trump as much as the next person. I think he is terrible. It bothers me every morning I wake up and I know that that guy's president. But I'm not going to let that guy disconnect my critical thinking skills. I'm not going to let him convince me that everything was fine until he showed up. That if we just get rid of him, everything's totally fine, and all of a sudden those 40 years of neoliberal nonsense will disappear. No, we have Trump because of our system. Our system gave us Trump. Trump didn't give us our system. And anyone that thinks otherwise has been successfully propagandized by corporate media because they are so desperate to maintain the status quo. And I don't believe for 1 second that represents the people that live in this country. I think people are hungry for ideas, they're hungry for solutions, and they're hungry for real change. Look at how bad Ron is at scrolling, they all said in unison. How did he not get better than this? The show's been going on long enough. He should be less shitty. This is from Tim. This is from Tim. We're finally going to have Native American women in Congress. Democrats Deb Haaland of New Mexico and Sharice Davids of Kansas won their House races and made history. 2 Native American women won their congressional races on Tuesday night, making history as the first female indigenous candidates heading to the U.S. House of Representatives. Democrat Deb Haaland, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, an enrolled member of the Laguna Pueblo tribe, swept to an easy victory in New Mexico's 1st congressional district, a heavily Democratic district with an open seat. The 57-year-old single mom is a former state party chair. Democrat Sharice Davids, a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation, won election in Kansas's 3rd congressional district against 4-term incumbent Representative Kevin Yoder, who was hurt by growing dissatisfaction with President Trump in the swing district. And it didn't help that Trump tweeted support for Yoder in the days before the election. A little more about Davids. Earned her law degree from Cornell University, worked as legal counsel for a development corporation on the South Dakota Reservation, and served as a White House fellow under Barack Obama. She also competed professionally in mixed martial arts. Come January, Davids will be the first openly LGBTQ member of the Kansas congressional delegation. Haaland got a law degree from the University of New Mexico School of Law, chaired her state's Democratic Party from 2015 to 2017, and was the Native American vote director for Obama's 2012 presidential campaign. She's a product of a military family. So there's some changes there. I'm not crazy familiar with either of those 2 candidates directly, so still learning more about them, and this is my first exposure. But, it is representation of a new tide, I do think. And we'll see what happens. Cody Jock is one of the regular viewers that helps really keep the show abreast on the Native American community. He is a Native American activist himself who plans to run for office someday, so I'm sure he will be sharing more and more information on these candidates as time goes on. And but there's a little more in results from yesterday. Still learning about both of them, and, we'll see what happens. And this is from Sam. Here's a little more election news from Sam. And we probably have room for a few more, guys, so tweet a couple more articles at me. Unless you tweeted one already. Because I try to get as many, I try to get different voices, you know. And this takes us over into Oklahoma. Kendra Horn beats Steve Russell. On a night when Democrats across the country are hoping for a blue wave, Democrat Kendra Horn appears to have defeated Republican Steve Russell in Oklahoma's 5th Congressional District. Horn stood as Oklahoma's best chance to send a Democrat to Washington, something the Sooner state has not done since Dan Boren decided against filing for re-election to the 2nd Congressional District in 2012. So I think overall we sort of saw typical midterm results. Like, I mean, there were certainly some details within those results, but if we're going to look at it just big picture, just kind of horse racy, R versus D, you see what you typically see in a midterm. There is definitely some opposition towards what's ever in the White House. In this case, there are Republicans in the White House, so Democrats pick up some gains. They picked up the House, not the Senate. I kind of feel like this is sort of what a lot of us predicted. I know I personally, I was like, look, I don't think there's going to be some huge blue wave. I think there's going to be a little wave. Might not be one you take to shore. I feel like that's what we got. Got a little wave in the House. Hey, there's a nice little ripple. I'm going to get on my surfboard out. And then, ooh, it fizzled out. Senate. There it goes. Fizzled out. Didn't quite take it to shore. And then when you got to shore, you saw that the local initiatives in your community failed, and it hurt. It hurt a lot because that's where real change is going to happen. You know, we talk about the election because it's an election day, but you guys know where I stand. I think that showing up to the polls is not enough. I still encourage it, but it's not enough. Real change is going to happen from the ground up, not the top bottom. Was it discouraging to see Ted Cruz win again? Of course it was. But real change is going to happen from the ground up. And it's going to happen through a mass labor movement. It's going to happen through a unification of workers. It's going to happen through massive strikes. That all needs to happen to get the real change we need. And it's going to happen through ballot initiatives fought hard on the grassroots. You know, it hurts a lot that public banking didn't make it here in LA. And I wasn't able to vote on it because I don't live in the proper jurisdiction. I live in Pasadena, so I couldn't vote on it. You know, I tried to do everything I could to spread the message the best I could. We covered it on the Jimmy Dore Show, covered it on Get Your News On with Ron. Had a lot of clips with Josh Androsky, who was one of the activists that really helped make that a reality. And well, it really sucks that it didn't make it. You know, this was their first time, and they made it pretty freaking far for it being the first time to really try to bring this fight to the table. They got on the ballot. They won over their local city council. They won over the mayor. They got some good press. And they had a showing. Did they win? No, they did lose. But they had a hell of a showing. And for a first time, that's pretty good. That's nothing to scoff at. We will try again. We will try again. All right. All right, Giovanna sends some good news. And this might be our last one before I go to the chat to end the show. And we already talked about this, but let's look into it a little more in-depthly. Michigan voters approve marijuana legalization. Yay! Voters in Michigan have opted to make their state the next to legalize marijuana. A ballot measure to replace cannabis prohibition with a legal and regulated system of cultivation and sales is well ahead by a margin of 56 to 44. The measure will allow adults over 21 to possess, grow, and use small amounts of marijuana legally. These provisions are set to take effect within 10 days of the vote being certified. Portions of the new law allowing for licensed business to grow, process, and sell cannabis to consumers will come online over the next year. The victory in Michigan highlights just how widespread support is for marijuana policy reform. Steve Hawkins, executive director of the Marijuana Policy Project, said, "This issue does not only enjoy strong support on the coast, but also in the Midwest and all throughout the country. Marijuana has now been legalized for adult use in 1 out of every 5 states and medical use in 3 out of every 5, so it is safe to say federal law is in need of an update." And that's what we're going to see next. If you don't have legal pot in your state, it's only a matter of time before it's federal. I mean, too many states have gotten on board. Last night was a huge win for pot policy activists. And I know DC 420, one of our regular viewers, there were some wins in that regard. And there were some reasons for optimism, and that was one of them. So, good job, Michigan. Looking good. I gave a shout out to Detroit yesterday. I'll give a shout out to Detroit anytime, and I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to seeing you in 2019. So, guys, I'm going to go over to the chat. We're going to end a few minutes early today because well, we have a technical issue, being I have a haircut appointment. And I just have to get done with some stuff. So let me go with the chat, and that's how we'll end today. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody. I know I didn't get to everyone's articles, but thank you for sending them. Zoe, Ron, I saw you on RT. Thank you. And you were bright. Thank you. But the cat's tail meddled when you were at your best. Was it a Russian cat? No, you know what it was is that Lucy was very, she wanted her moment in the spotlight. You know, she's shy on this show, but she is more of a diva than she lets on. She really is, and she wanted to let her voice be heard. She's like, bring up what we need to happen in labor. And I'm like, Lucy, that wasn't the question yet. We're going to get to that. Give it time. And she's like, labor, the working class. People want progressive populist policies. And I'm like, Lucy, calm the hell down. We're going to get there. She's like, now. And I'm like, Lucy, all right, I got this. Wait for it. And then at the end of that program, they said, what else do we want to touch on? And that's when I hammered that point home. Because the panel had all different views represented. There was a view on the right. There was a view kind of on the just anti-establishment arena. There was a view on the left, and then there was a view from, I guess you would call it the center. I don't know what you would call that. They talked, somebody was like, Trump's tax returns, and that's what people care about. Russia, Russia, Russia. There was one of those on the panel. Ron has Manscaping Rendezvous. That's a way cool name for a haircut. Xander, at some point, when do we point to the voters? I hate voter shaming, but how are we supposed to react when people re-elect Ted Cruz, Miller, DF, etc., etc.? There is no excuse for that. Look, I encourage people to vote. I'm not here to shame anyone that chooses not to. I do encourage it strongly. And I think, Xander, the simple answer here is give people something to vote for. I think Beto O'Rourke worked hard. I'm not going to take that away from the guy. I don't know if I think he should run for president. I think that's a bit much. The people that are saying that, I think is a little delusional to kind of go that far. But we'll see. But, you know, he did soften up on some policy things on the campaign trail. Is that why he lost? I don't know. That's tough to say. But that's something that you can't help but notice. You can't help but notice him and Gillum, who really had a lot of momentum behind them, they soften up on some policy ideas, and then they didn't win, you know? So and I think it's really sad. I mean, think about the people in Virginia. They woke up with a choice, and that choice was, do I vote for Tim Kaine? Because if I don't, a white supremacist might get in. And God, we deserve better. Holy shit, Tim Kaine is anti-union. He's right to work. He's too conservative even for the Democrats. He's inexplicably a Democrat. He's pro-life, quote unquote. And people had to make the decision, I don't want to vote for this guy, but if I don't, a white supremacist might get in. Nobody deserves those terrible choices. People deserve better than that. You shouldn't go to the polls so you can keep out a fascist or a racist or a white supremacist. A lot of those things kind of overlap, but you get what I'm saying. You deserve to vote for something. That's something, I mean, that's not too much to ask. That's not a purity test. That's not unreasonable. It's unreasonable to not expect that. And a lot of you guys are bringing up ranked choice voting. Agreed. We needed ranked choice voting yesterday. And, you know, when you look at it overall, and there are some exceptions, of course, there's progressives that lost. Of course, there are some establishment candidates that still won. Joe Manchin still won. John Tester pulled it off by the skin of his teeth. But I think that there's a lot of evidence out there that's showing us we don't need the establishment. The establishment needs us. And I think that if we really kind of united outside of electoral politics, we could bring about real change, because then a new party would be possible without the permission of a heavy hitter in the political arena. So there are some reasons for optimism. But there were definitely some losses. Here in California, we lost. You know me, I don't like to put a bow on it. We lost. But we're certainly not going to give up. Let me see what you guys are saying here to end the show. Lucy appreciates all the kind words about her television appearance. She's very excited. Celeste points out, I had to vote for Menendez so I can relate. Pro Center, ranked choice voting is cool, but it still won't matter if the votes are not verified, certified, and paper ballots that can be recounted. Agreed. Until we have a better, solid, uncorruptible system, or at least better than what we have, at the very least, we need to go to paper ballots. I agree 100%. Patricia points out provisional ballots. I don't know of any other country that has provisional ballots. Yeah, those are... I was at my polling place, and there was a guy there, and I didn't want to come down on the guy because it's not his fault. He was just... And I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to have a conversation, but he said to someone that got a provisional ballot, and it was frustrating. It's frustrating to watch someone be handed a provisional ballot. It's very frustrating. because they were just denied their vote, basically. And they said, don't worry, all of them are counted. And I said to the guy, because I couldn't help it, I was like, I really envy your optimism. And he goes, well, I believe them when they say it. Like as if I'm crazy, you know. And I said, like I said. And then everyone just stared at me awkwardly. Somebody said I should have started running jokes by them since I had everyone's attention, which I should have. Daniel says, I couldn't agree more, Ron. We got to get together. Melissa H. said, just got an email asking me to demand Trump's tax returns now. What does it take to wake Ron Placone? I think I'm awake. Help me, everybody. I'm waving a hand, not a gat this time. A gat with 4 gittins. Think about it. I'll get back to you if anything weird happens. All right. I don't know what that means, Daniel. I'm pretty sure it's an insult. But, you know, what are you going to do? You got your insult read. Derek, the media is completely phony, and they are implicitly involved in this sham of a democracy. Agreed. Chris Wynn, I'm really late, but Joe Donnelly lost. Yes, there's another establishment guy that went down. Joe Donnelly. A lot of establishment candidates didn't do so well. Because when you give people the choice between a Republican and a Republican, they're just going to go with the Republican. But all these red states are approving progressive policies. These red states are liking progressive policies, but they're not voting for these corporatist Democrats. It's almost like maybe people want an actual opposition choice. And maybe that opposition choice could win. Maybe not. But the establishment choice sure as hell ain't winning either. Guys, we are totally out of time. Thank you so much for being part of this. I hope you all feel realistic. Reasons to be optimistic. Still some big losses. And, you know, at the end of the day, we got to focus on coming together as a society. We got to focus on coming together as a progressive movement. Let me get to some super chats. I thank you guys so much. Mr. Brokenass points out some news we shouldn't be happy about. Greens lost ballot access in Ohio, Arizona, Indiana, Minnesota, and Utah. Omar, Sharice Davids is nothing to celebrate. I went to her campaign site, and she doesn't support Medicare for all or tuition-free college. Giovanna, play 1960s Bob Dylan for Lucy. She'll love him. Of course she will. And that's a callback to a Patreon post that I made. Lucy has a dialogue over on my Patreon. If you want to read it, patreon.com/Ron Placone for a Give What You Can level. You get all kinds of exclusive content, including my album, which I posted there now. My album, Agnostic Holiday, is out now. You can go over to my Twitter for links to that or my website. Yeah, ronplacone.com for tour dates. We just confirmed Pensacola, Florida. March 12th, we're going to be in Pensacola, Florida. March 13th, New Orleans, Louisiana. Tickets for that will be available soon. January, Gainesville, Coral Gables, Orlando, Jacksonville, coming at you January. And guys, next week, Austin, Texas, or this week actually, Austin, Texas, November 10th. Tickets still available. Grab them now because there's only a few left. Get your tickets now for Austin, Texas, November 10th, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my hometown, November 23rd. I can't wait to see you, Pittsburgh. It's been a crazy couple months for you, but hey, Summer Lee, hell yeah, Summer Lee. So I can't wait to see you in Pittsburgh, November 23rd. Get your tickets now. Still tickets available for that. ronplacone.com for all that. Chris Wynn, Graham Elwood said you may be coming to both Indy and Bloomington. We're looking into Midwest states, Chris, and I would love to come to both because I don't want to miss either. I don't know whether we'll be able to come to both or not. Tough to say this early on, but I promise we will be at one or the other. I promise that. Guys, do not give up hope. It's time to get together in our communities because we can make our communities a better place, and that's what has to happen. It happens from the ground up. Look at these progressive wins. They did it from the ground up. Not the bottom, not the top to bottom, ground up. And there are some indications that that is working. Come to North Carolina, Ron. I was just there. I was just in Asheville. But we will be coming back to the Southeast probably some point in 2019. Not sure which form it'll take. But guys, I hope you're having a good week. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being part of this. You know the drill. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. And I hope you guys like my new haircut tomorrow. Lucy's a television star! Peace.